Teho stood before the massive doors of the council hall and took a deep breath. The doors were 50 feet tall, made of some metal that seemed to glow with its own light. Behind him, Gina adjusted her diplomatic uniform and gave him a small nod. They were ready, or at least as ready as any human could be when meeting the rulers of the galaxy. The doors opened without a sound. The council hall spread before them like a canyon made of silver and glass. Hundreds of aliens sat in curved rows that rose up toward the ceiling. Some had scales, others had feathers, and some looked like they were made of living crystal. All of them turned to stare at the two humans walking down the long floor toward the center. Teho had been a soldier before he became an ambassador. He had fought in 3 wars on Earth and had seen things that would break most people, but walking under the gaze of these ancient species made him feel small in a way that bullets never had. "Ambassador Teho of Earth," a voice boomed through the hall. It came from everywhere at once. "You stand before the Galactic Council to answer for the crimes of your species." At the center of the hall, sitting on the highest seat, was Veltar. He was a reptilian creature, 12 feet tall even while sitting down. His scales were deep red, and his eyes were yellow with black slits for pupils. He had ruled the council for 60 years, which meant nothing to a species that lived for 300. "Crimes," Teho said, keeping his voice steady. "We were told this was a diplomatic meeting." "Do not play games, human," Veltar hissed. The translator in Teho's ear turned the alien sounds into words. "Your species has violated the Treaty of the Outer Rim. You have built military stations in protected space. You have armed ships beyond the limits set for new species. You expand like a virus, consuming everything in your path." Gina stepped forward. "Speaker Veltar, humanity has only established colonies in unclaimed space. We have followed every guideline given to us when we joined the galactic community 20 years ago." "Unclaimed?" Another voice spoke. This one came from Kree, an insectoid creature with 4 arms and eyes like black marbles. He commanded the Council's security forces. "The space you occupy was claimed by the Draxi Collective 400 years ago. They simply had not yet settled it." Teho felt anger rising in his chest. "We found no markers, no claims, no settlements. We checked every database available to us. The space was empty." "Because you are young and ignorant," Veltar said. "The Draxi Collective does not mark their claims the way your primitive species does. They use quantum beacons that you lack the technology to detect." "Then how are we supposed to know?" Gina asked. "That is not our problem," Kree clicked. "Ignorance is not innocence. Your species has broken our laws. Now you must face the consequences." Teho looked around the hall. Some of the aliens nodded in agreement. Others looked uncomfortable but said nothing. He realized then that this was not a trial. It was a sentencing. "What consequences?" he asked. Veltar leaned forward. "Humanity will surrender all military vessels to the Council. You will abandon your colonies in the disputed territories. Your species will be restricted to your home system for the next 100 years. This is the mercy of the Council." The words hit Teho like a punch. "Restricted to the solar system for a century. The colonies abandoned. Millions of humans left to whatever fate the Council decided, and all of it based on laws they had never been properly taught. We have 15 billion humans living in those colonies," Teho said. "You want us to just leave them?" "They can return to Earth," Veltar said. "Or they can remain and become subjects of whichever species claims that space. The Council does not care which they choose." "This is not justice," Gina said, her voice shaking with anger. "This is extortion." "Mind your tongue, human," Kree warned. "You stand in the presence of powers that ruled the stars when your ancestors were still living in caves." Teho met Veltar's yellow eyes. "And if we refuse?" The hall went silent. Even the whispers stopped. Veltar's mouth opened in what might have been a smile, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Then the Council will enforce its will," the speaker said. "We have 5,000 warships. You have fewer than 200. We have mastered faster than light travel for 10,000 years. You have barely learned to crawl between stars. If you refuse, we will remove you from our space by force, and we will do so without mercy." Teho felt Jinna's hand touch his arm, a warning, but he could not back down. Not now. Not when billions of human lives hung in the balance. "Humanity will not surrender," he said clearly. "We will not abandon our people. We will defend what is ours." The hall erupted in noise. Aliens shouted and clicked and screeched. Veltar raised one clawed hand and silence fell again. "Then you have chosen war," the speaker said. "You have 30 days to reconsider. If you do not surrender by then, the Council will act." "This meeting is over," The massive doors opened behind them. Taeho turned and walked toward them, Jinna beside him. He could feel hundreds of eyes on his back. Some were angry. Some were curious. Some were hungry, like predators watching prey. As they stepped through the doors into the corridor beyond, Jinna grabbed his arm. "Are you insane? They will destroy us." "Maybe," Taeho said. "But I will not sell 15 billion people into slavery or death, because some ancient reptile thinks we are beneath him." They walked quickly through the station toward their ship. Gina was already working on her tablet sending messages. "I will contact Earth. They need to know what happened here." "Tell them to prepare," Taeho said. "Tell them the Council believes we are weak, that we will surrender when they threaten us. Tell them we have 30 days. As they boarded their small diplomatic ship, Taeho looked back at the massive Council station. It was the size of a small moon, home to thousands of species, a symbol of galactic unity and power. In 30 days, it might become the symbol of something else entirely. He sat in the pilot's seat and began the launch sequence. Gina sat beside him, her face pale but determined. "They will come for us," she said quietly. "They will bring their fleets and their weapons and their ancient power." "I know," Taeho said. The ship lifted off and turned toward human space. "Then let them come. They will learn what it means to threaten humanity. They will learn that some species do not kneel." Behind them in the council hall, Kree turned to Veltar. "They will not surrender." "Good," Veltar said. "It has been too long since we reminded the galaxy what happens to those who defy us. Prepare the fleets. In 30 days we will teach these humans their place." The countdown had begun. Governor Dongwu looked out the window of his office at the city below. New Busan stretched across the valley like a jewel under the light of two suns. The buildings were a mix of Earth architecture and new designs made for this world. 2 million people called this place home. They had farms and schools and hospitals. They had built a life here far from Earth under alien stars. His desk computer beeped, a message marked urgent and encrypted. Dongwu opened it and felt his blood turn cold. It was from Ambassador Taeho. The message was short and clear. The Council had given humanity an ultimatum: surrender everything or face war. Taeho believed the Council would not wait 30 days. He believed they would strike early to catch humanity unprepared. Dongwu read the message 3 times, then called for Haiwan, his chief of defense. Haiwan arrived within minutes. She was a former fleet commander who had retired to New Busan to be with her family. She was small and quick, with gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. "We have a problem," Dongwu said, showing her the message. Haiwan read it in silence. Her face did not change, but her hands tightened on the tablet. "When do we start evacuation?" "Now," Dongwu said. "But we cannot evacuate 2 million people in 20 days. We do not have enough ships." "Then we evacuate the children first," Haiwan said. "The elderly. The sick. Anyone who cannot fight." "Fight?" Dongwu looked at her. "We have 300 defense troops and 6 patrol ships. If the Council comes with a fleet, what can we do?" "We can buy time," Haiwan said. "Every hour we hold them is another 100 children on evacuation ships. Every day we resist is another 1,000 families saved." Dongwu closed his eyes. He had been a governor for 8 years. He had cut ribbons and given speeches and solved disputes about water rights. He had never imagined he would have to prepare his people for war. "Do it," he said. "Begin evacuation immediately, prepare all defenses, and Haiwan, if they come, make them pay for every inch." The next 18 days were a blur. Ships came and went, carrying thousands of people away from New Busan. Children cried as they left their homes. Parents stayed behind to keep the colony running. Haiwan turned the orbital platforms into fortresses and armed every patrol ship with whatever weapons they could find. On the 19th day, the Council fleet arrived. Dongwu was in the command center when the alarm screamed. Haiwan stood beside him, watching the screens as 40 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. 40 ships, Haiwan whispered. They sent 40 ships to destroy one colony. The communication system crackled to life. Kree's voice filled the room, translated into human speech. "New Busan Colony, this is Council Security Commander Kree. You are ordered to surrender immediately. Power down all weapons. Prepare for occupation. You have 1 hour to comply. Dongwu picked up the microphone with shaking hands. Commander Kree, this is Governor Dongwu. We are a civilian colony. We have done nothing wrong. Why do you bring a war fleet to our home? Your species has chosen to defy the Council, Kree replied. You are now enemies of galactic law. Surrender or be destroyed. Dongwu looked at Haiwan. She checked her screens and shook her head. The evacuation was not complete. 500,000 people were still on the planet. Most of them were adults who had volunteered to stay until the last ship left. We need more time, Dongwu said into the microphone. We have civilians who need to evacuate. Give us 1 day, just 1 day. There was a long silence. Then Kree spoke again. You have 1 hour, not 1 second more. Haiwan immediately began giving orders. The patrol ships moved into position. The orbital platforms powered up their weapons. It was like throwing rocks at a mountain, but they would do it anyway. The hour passed in minutes. Dongwu watched the clock count down and prayed that the evacuation ships would move faster. When the timer reached 0, nothing happened. For a moment he dared to hope. Then the Council ships opened fire. The first orbital platform exploded in silence, a ball of fire that lit up the darkness. The second platform returned fire, its weapons flashing as they struck a Council ship's shields. The shields held. The platform did not survive the return fire. Haiwan's patrol ships darted between the Council fleet like insects attacking giants. They were small and fast, using the tactics she had learned in fleet exercises. Hit and run. Never stay still. Make them work for every kill. 2 patrol ships were destroyed in the first 10 minutes, but they took a Council ship with them, concentrating their fire until the shields collapsed and the hull split open. They are not expecting resistance, Haiwan said, watching her screens. They thought we would surrender or run. Will it be enough? Dongwu asked. No, Haiwan said honestly. But we can delay them. Every minute counts. The battle raged for 3 hours. Haiwan's ships fought with desperate courage, using the planet and the debris from destroyed platforms as cover. They destroyed 2 more Council ships and damaged 5 others. But one by one, the human ships fell. The last patrol ship was commanded by Captain Il-sung. His ship was damaged, his shields failing, his weapons almost out of power. Kree's voice came over the open channel. Human ship, you have fought well. Surrender now and you will be treated with honor. Il-sung's response was to ram his ship into the Council flagship. The explosion ripped through the flagship's forward section, killing Kree instantly and crippling the ship. With the orbital defenses gone, the Council fleet moved toward the planet. Dongwu stood in the command center surrounded by his people. They had done everything they could. The evacuation ships had escaped. 1.3 million people were safe. But 500,000 remained. Broadcast on all channels, Dongwu said. Tell the Council fleet that we are a civilian target. Tell them we surrender. Tell them to please spare the people. The message went out. The Council fleet ignored it. Missiles fell from the sky like rain. They struck the military installations first, turning Haiwan's carefully prepared defenses into craters. But the missiles did not stop there. They hit the spaceport where refugees were waiting for the next evacuation ship. They hit the power stations and the water treatment plants. They hit apartment buildings and schools. Dongwu watched the city die. The screens showed fires spreading, buildings collapsing, people running through streets as the world ended around them. He tried to send more messages begging them to stop. No one answered. When the attack finally ended, 47,000 people were dead. The survivors wandered through ruins, searching for loved ones, crying for help that would not come. The Council fleet departed as quickly as it had arrived. They left behind a broken world and a message that echoed through the galaxy on every channel. This is the fate of those who defy the Council. Let all species witness and learn. But in that moment, the Council made its greatest mistake. They believed the message would terrify humanity into submission. Instead, it did something else entirely. It made them angry. The news from New Busan reached Earth like a thunderclap. Every screen showed the same images. Burning buildings, bodies in the streets, children crying beside their dead parents. 47,000 people murdered in an attack that violated every law the council claimed to uphold. Taeho watched the broadcasts from his new office in the military command center. They had given him a uniform again and a new title. He was no longer an ambassador. He was now the commander of humanity's military response. Jinna stood beside him, her face wet with tears she did not bother to hide. "They wanted us to be afraid," she said quietly. "They wanted us to kneel." "They got the opposite," Taeho replied. He pointed at another screen showing thousands of people lined up outside recruitment centers. "Every human in the colonies is volunteering. Every ship that can fly is being armed. Every factory is working around the clock to build weapons. On Earth, the governments had come together in a way they never had before. Every nation contributed what it could. Old warships were pulled from retirement. Civilian transports were converted into carriers. Scientists worked on new weapons, new shields, new ways to kill the species that had attacked them." Admiral Young-Soo entered the command center. He was an old man with white hair and a face like carved stone. He had commanded the fleet during the last war on Earth and had retired to teach strategy. Now he was back in uniform and his eyes burned with purpose. "The fleet is ready," Young-Soo said. "Every ship we have. It is not much compared to the council, but it is enough to begin." "Begin what?" Gina asked. Young-Soo smiled, and it was not a kind smile. "Operation Blood Price. They killed 47,000 of our people. We will make sure they remember it." Taeho pulled up a star map. Jinna had been working with intelligence teams gathering information about the council fleet. What she discovered changed everything. "The council believes we are primitive," Jinna said, pointing at the map. "They think our ships are slow. They think we cannot fight far from our territory. But they are wrong." She highlighted several points on the map. "These are council supply depots. They are lightly defended because the council never imagined anyone would attack them. If we strike here, here, and here, we cut off their fleet from supplies and reinforcements. They will see us coming," Young-Soo said. "Their sensors are better than ours." "Not if we use the jump drives," Taeho said. The jump drives were experimental, built from stolen technology and human innovation. They were unstable and dangerous, but they could move a ship across vast distances in an instant. "We hit fast, we hit hard, and we jump away before they can respond." Young-Soo nodded slowly. "It is risky. We could lose half the fleet if the drives fail." "Better to die fighting than live on our knees," Taeho said. 3 days later, the human fleet struck. Captain Bo-Ra commanded the destroyer Indomitable. She was young for a captain. Only 30 years old, but she had graduated at the top of her class and had earned her position through skill, not politics. Her ship was one of 20 assigned to attack the supply depot at Kepler Station. The jump was terrifying. One moment they were in human space, the next they were staring at a massive station surrounded by cargo ships and only 6 council warships on patrol. "All ships, open fire," Bo-Ra ordered. "Target the warships first, then the station." The human ships moved as one, unleashing everything they had. Missiles and railgun rounds tore through space. The council ships barely had time to raise shields before the first impacts hit. 2 council ships exploded immediately. The others turned to fight, but they were outnumbered and unprepared. Bo-Ra's ship targeted the largest warship, concentrating fire on its engines. The ship tried to turn, tried to run, but it was too late. The engines exploded and the ship tumbled through space, lifeless. The station itself was enormous, bigger than any human city. But it was not built for war. Its shields were meant to stop asteroids, not military weapons. The human fleet tore through them like paper and began destroying the cargo ships and docking bays. 15 minutes until council reinforcements arrive, Bo-Ra's sensor officer called out. "We need to leave." "Not yet," Bo-Ra said. She targeted the station's main reactor. If they destroyed it, the entire station would be crippled for months. "Fire everything." The Indomitable shuddered as it launched its last missiles. They struck the reactor shield and punched through. The explosion that followed lit up the darkness like a newborn star. "Jump now," Bo-Ra ordered. The human fleet vanished just as the council reinforcements arrived. They left behind a destroyed station, burning cargo ships and 4 dead warships. It was the first battle, but not the last. Over the next 2 months, human ships struck a dozen targets. They hit supply lines and communication stations. They ambushed patrol groups and destroyed military outposts. The council had superior numbers and technology, but humanity had something else. They had anger. They had purpose. and they had nothing left to lose. Young-Soo ran the war from Earth, coordinating attacks across 100 light-years. He used tactics from Earth's history, adapted for space warfare. Hit and run. Never fight fair. Make the enemy afraid of the dark. Taeho traveled between battle groups, meeting with captains and soldiers. He made sure they knew what they were fighting for. He showed them the images from New Busan. He reminded them of the 47,000 dead. And he promised them that the council would pay. The council began to change their tactics. They pulled their fleets back to defend important systems. They sent larger patrol groups that were harder to ambush. But they also began to argue among themselves. 3 species on the council had not wanted this war. They believed humanity should have been given time to learn and grow. They believed the attack on New Busan was too harsh. Now, as their ships burned and their people died, they began to speak louder. Myra was one of them. She was an avian species, covered in blue and gold feathers with eyes that saw in colors humans could not imagine. She stood before the council and demanded answers. "We told you to negotiate with the humans," she said to Veltar. "You chose war instead. Now we are losing ships. Our people are dying. And for what? To punish a species for expanding into empty space. They violated our laws," Veltar hissed. "They must be taught respect." "They are teaching us something," Myra replied. "They are teaching us what happens when we mistake youth for weakness. They are teaching us that we are not invincible." But Veltar would not listen. He ordered more attacks, larger fleets, and harsher tactics. The war grew bloodier with each passing day. In human space, Taeho received reports of another victory. Young-Soo's tactics had destroyed a council battle group near the rim, but the victory came at a cost. 15 human ships were lost, including one commanded by Taeho's former student. Jinna found him alone in his office, staring at the casualty reports. "We are winning," she said softly. "Are we?" Taeho looked at her. "Every day more people die. Theirs and ours. When does it end?" "When they surrender," Jinna said. "Or when we make them wish they had never heard of humanity." Taeho stood and walked to the window. Outside, he could see ships being built in the orbital shipyards. More weapons. More tools of war. "They came to the council in peace," he said. "Now we come to them in blood. I wonder which they will remember more." "Both," Jinna said. "They will remember." 6 months into the war, the galaxy was burning. What had started as a simple punishment of a young species had become something else entirely. Human ships appeared and disappeared like ghosts, striking where the council was weak and vanishing before reinforcements could arrive. The council was losing, and everyone knew it. Young-Soo stood in the war room studying a holographic map of council space. Red markers showed human victories. Blue markers showed council positions. There were far more red markers than anyone had expected. "Their central fleet is regrouping here," Young-Soo said, pointing at a system near the council homeworlds. "Veltar is gathering every ship he can find. He plans to strike at Earth itself." Taeho looked at the map. "How many ships?" 300, Young-Soo replied. "Maybe more. It is everything they have left." "Then we need to stop them before they get here," Taeho said. "Can we do it?" Young-Soo smiled. It was the smile of a man who had spent his whole life preparing for this moment. "We can, but it will not be easy." He highlighted another system, one called the Iron Nebula. It was a massive cloud of gas and debris between council space and human territory. Any fleet traveling to Earth would have to pass through it. "The nebula interferes with sensors," Young-Soo explained. "They will be blind. We can hide our fleet inside the cloud and ambush them as they pass through." "They will expect an ambush," Jinna said. She had been coordinating with intelligence teams across the colonies. "Veltar is not stupid." "No," Young-Soo agreed. "But he is desperate. And desperate leaders make mistakes." On the ground, the war had taken a different shape. Commander Subin led human special forces in operations to liberate the worlds that the council had occupied. She was a small woman, with short black hair and scars on her face from a battle on New Busan. She had been there when the missiles fell. She had pulled survivors from the rubble. She had buried friends in the ash. Now she stood on the surface of a world called Haven Prime. The council had occupied it 3 months ago, claiming it was rightfully theirs. The human colonists had been forced into camps, treated like prisoners in their own homes. Subin's team moved through the darkness like shadows. They wore armor that bent light around them, making them almost invisible. They carried weapons designed to kill quickly and quietly. The council guard station was ahead, built at the edge of the largest camp. Subin could see the guards through her night vision. They were relaxed, confident. They did not expect resistance from a species they considered primitive. All teams, in position, Subin whispered into her communication device. On my mark. She counted down from 3. When she reached 0, the night exploded with violence. Her team hit the guard station from 3 sides at once. The guards died before they could sound an alarm. Subin moved through the station, her weapon finding targets with practiced ease. In 90 seconds, it was over. The camp gates opened. Thousands of humans poured out, some crying, some cheering, all of them free. Subin did not stop to celebrate. There were 12 more camps on this world, and she intended to liberate them all before sunrise. In space, the final confrontation was approaching. The Council fleet gathered in orbit around their capital world. Veltar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the ships assemble. 300 warships, the largest fleet the Council had gathered in 1,000 years. They cannot stand against this, Veltar said to his second-in-command. We will crush them at Earth and end this rebellion once and for all. But not everyone on the Council agreed. Myra had called an emergency session of the Council leadership. She stood before the assembled species and made her case. This war is destroying us, Myra said. We have lost over 400 ships. 30 of our supply stations are gone. Trade has collapsed. And for what? To punish humans for settling empty space? They defied us, another council member said. If we show weakness now, other species will follow their example. We already look weak, Myra snapped. A species that has traveled the stars for only 50 years is defeating us. Do you know what the other species are saying? They are saying that the council is old and slow. They are saying that we fear change. They are saying that maybe humanity deserves a place at the table. Never, Veltar hissed. They are animals. They are savages. They attacked New Busan to provoke us. We attacked New Busan, Myra shouted. We fired on civilians, we killed children. And now you want to attack Earth and do it again? I will not allow it. Veltar stood, towering over the avian. You have no power to stop it. The fleet launches tomorrow. Earth will burn like New Busan burned. But that night, 3 council species withdrew their ships from the fleet. Myra had convinced them that the war was wrong. 100 ships left, returning to their homeworlds. Veltar was furious, but there was nothing he could do. The council fleet entered the Iron Nebula with 200 ships instead of 300. Youngsu watched them come, his own fleet hidden in the clouds of gas and debris. He had 150 ships, outnumbered, but not outmatched. They are in the perfect position, his tactical officer said. Their sensors are useless. They are flying blind. Then let us open their eyes, Youngsu said. All ships attack. The human fleet emerged from the nebula like a swarm of hornets. Missiles and railgun fire tore into the council formation. Ships exploded before they could raise shields. The council fleet tried to form a defensive line, but it was too late. They were surrounded, caught in a trap they could not escape. Youngsu directed the battle with calm precision. He had studied every military leader from Earth's history. He used tactics from ancient naval battles, adapted for space warfare. Divide the enemy, isolate their strongest ships, force them to fight on your terms, not theirs. The battle raged for 6 hours. Council ships tried to break free, but human vessels blocked every escape route. Veltar's flagship fought desperately, its weapons cutting through 3 human ships before Bora's destroyer targeted its command deck. The missiles struck true. Veltar's flagship went dark, dead in space. The council commander was pulled from the wreckage by a human boarding team. He was alive, but his fleet was destroyed. Kree, who had led the attack on New Busan, was also captured. His ship had been crippled early in the battle. Subin's team had boarded it and found him in his command chamber, trying to activate the self-destruct. No, Subin said. her weapon pointed at his head. You do not get to die a hero. You get to live and face justice for what you did. When the battle ended, 160 council ships were destroyed or captured. The human fleet had lost 40 ships, but they had won the greatest victory of the war. News of the defeat reached the council hall within hours. The chamber erupted in chaos. Some species demanded immediate surrender. Others called for Veltar's arrest. Myra stood at the center of it all and declared that she was taking control of the council. This war ends now, she announced. We will negotiate with humanity. We will make peace. And we will punish those who led us into this disaster. On Earth, Tejo received the message. The council wanted peace. After 6 months of blood and fire, they were finally ready to talk. Do we accept? Jinnah asked. Tejo looked at the casualty reports. 50,000 humans dead, hundreds of ships lost, colonies in ruins. But they had won. They had proven that humanity could not be bullied or broken. Yes, he said. But on our terms. They will answer for New Busan, they will pay reparations, and they will never threaten us again. The war was over. Now came the harder part. Tejo stood before the council hall doors for the second time in his life. 1 year had passed since his first visit, but it felt like a lifetime. Last time he had come as an ambassador begging for understanding. This time he came as a conqueror demanding justice. The doors opened. The council hall looked the same, but everything else had changed. The seats were half empty. 3 species had left the council entirely after the war. Many others had sent junior representatives instead of their leaders, afraid of what humanity might demand. Jinnah walked beside him, carrying a data tablet that contained evidence of every crime the council had committed. Behind them came a military escort of 20 human soldiers in full armor. The council had protested the armed escort, but Tejo had been clear. Either they accepted it, or there would be no peace talks. At the center of the hall, where Veltar once sat, was Myra. The avian looked smaller in the massive chair, but her voice was strong when she spoke. Ambassador Tejo, you returned to us under very different circumstances. Commander Tejo, he corrected. I am no longer an ambassador. I am here to negotiate the terms of your surrender. A murmur ran through the hall. Some aliens shifted uncomfortably. Others looked angry, but none of them challenged his words. Very well, Myra said. State your terms. Jinnah stepped forward and activated her tablet. A hologram appeared in the center of the hall, showing the burning city of New Busan. These are the crimes committed by the Galactic Council under the leadership of Veltar and Kree, she began. Her voice was steady, but Tejo could hear the anger beneath it. On the 19th day of the war, Council forces attacked New Busan without proper warning. They fired on civilian targets. They destroyed schools, hospitals, and residential areas. 47,000 unarmed people died in that attack. The hologram changed, showing images of bodies in the streets, children crying beside their dead parents, and buildings collapsed into rubble. This was not an accident, Jinnah continued. This was not collateral damage. This was deliberate murder, designed to terrorize humanity into submission. The attack was regrettable, one council member said, but it happened during a war that your species started by refusing to surrender. We started nothing, Tejo said, his voice like ice. You demanded we abandon 15 billion people. You threatened us with extinction. You fired the first shot. Every death in this war is on your hands. Myra raised a wing for silence. Commander Tejo, what do you want from us? Tejo pulled out a document and began reading. First, the Council will formally acknowledge responsibility for the attack on New Busan. You will apologize to humanity and to the families of the victims. Second, you will pay reparations to rebuild New Busan and every other colony damaged in this war. Third, Veltar and Kree will be turned over to human custody to stand trial for war crimes. They are already in your custody, Myra said quietly. Then you will not interfere with their trial or execution, Tejo continued. Fourth, humanity will be granted full membership in the Galactic Council with the same rights and protections as any other species. Fifth, all restrictions on human expansion and military development are permanently removed. And sixth, the Council will undergo immediate reform to prevent this from ever happening again. The hall exploded in noise. Aliens shouted in a dozen languages. Some called the terms too harsh. Others said humanity had no right to demand anything. But Tejo stood silent, waiting for the chaos to die down. Myra looked at him with her strange, multicolored eyes. "You are asking us to completely change how the council operates." "No," Tejo said. "I am telling you that you will change, or we will leave this council and form our own alliance. And I promise you, many species will join us. Your authority is broken. Your fleets are destroyed. You have two choices. Adapt or become irrelevant." There was a long silence. Finally, Myra spoke. "I will put your terms to a vote." The vote took 3 hours. Species argued and negotiated. Some threatened to leave if the terms were accepted. Others threatened to leave if they were not. In the end, the vote passed by a narrow margin. The council would accept humanity's demands. But before the treaty could be signed, Tejo had one more requirement. "I want to speak," he said. "Not as a commander or an ambassador. As a survivor," Myra nodded. "The floor is yours." Tejo walked to the center of the hall. He did not look at the aliens in their seats. Instead, he looked at the cameras that were broadcasting this moment across the galaxy. "My name is Tejo. 1 year ago, I stood in this hall and was told that humanity was too young, too primitive, too aggressive to have a place among you. I was told that we must surrender or be destroyed. I was told that the Council had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years, and that we were nothing compared to that power." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Then you attacked New Busan. You killed 47,000 people to teach us a lesson. You wanted us to be afraid. You wanted us to kneel. But you made a mistake. You forgot something important about humanity. We do not kneel. We do not forget. And we do not forgive without justice." He turned to face Myra. "You say you regret New Busan. You say it was an unfortunate result of war. But regret is not enough. Words are not enough. So I brought someone to remind you of what you did." The doors opened. An old man walked in, supported by 2 human soldiers. It was Dongwu, the governor of New Busan. He had survived the attack but had been badly injured. He walked with a cane and his face was scarred from burns, but his eyes were clear and filled with purpose. Dongwu stood beside Tejo and looked up at the council. When he spoke, his voice filled the hall. "I am Governor Dongwu. I was in New Busan when your ships came. I watched my city burn. I pulled bodies from the rubble. I held dying children in my arms and promised them help was coming, knowing I was lying." His voice cracked, but he continued. "You say you want peace now. You say you are sorry. But where was your mercy when we begged you to stop? Where was your wisdom when we offered to surrender? Where was your justice when you fired on schools and hospitals?" Tears ran down his scarred face. "I lost my daughter in that attack. She was 12 years old. Her name was Ji Young, and she wanted to be a doctor. She wanted to help people. She never hurt anyone in her life. But your missiles did not care about that." The hall was completely silent. Even the species that had opposed humanity looked uncomfortable. Myra's feathers had turned a dark blue, a sign of shame in her species. "I did not come here for revenge," Dongwu said. "Revenge will not bring Ji Young back. I came here to make sure you remember. Every time you meet in this hall, I want you to remember the price of your pride. Every time you make a decision about war or peace, I want you to remember the children who died because you would not listen." He turned to leave, then stopped. "And I want you to know that humanity forgives you. Not because you deserve it, but because we choose to be better than our anger. We choose to build instead of destroy. We choose peace even though you taught us war." Dongwu left the hall. The silence that followed was heavy with shame and regret. Finally, Myra stood. Her voice was barely a whisper. "On behalf of the Galactic Council, I apologize to humanity. We were wrong. We were cruel. We were unjust. We will live with this shame forever." The treaty was signed that day. It was called the Accord of Blood and Tears. Humanity was granted full membership in the Council. Reparations were paid. Feltar and Kree were tried and executed for their crimes. The Council was reformed, with new laws to protect younger species from exploitation. 5 years later, humanity had become one of the most powerful species in the Council. Their fleets patrolled the trade routes, protecting weaker species from pirates and aggression. Their diplomats helped negotiate peace between warring factions. Former enemies now sought human alliance and protection. Tejo retired from military service and returned to Earth. He spent his days writing about the war, making sure that future generations would remember what happened and why. Jinnah became the human representative on the Council, advocating for justice and reform. On New Busan, a memorial was built in the center of the rebuilt city. It listed the names of all 47,000 people who died in the attack. At the top, carved in stone, were simple words: "We came in peace. They met us with war. We fought in blood. Now we teach them peace." Every year on the anniversary of the attack, species from across the galaxy came to New Busan to honor the dead. They brought flowers and gifts. They spoke words of sorrow and hope, and they remembered the lesson that humanity had taught them at such terrible cost, that the measure of a civilization is not in how it treats the powerful, but how it protects the powerless, that justice delayed is justice denied, and that peace built on the graves of the innocent is no peace at all. Humanity had come to the stars seeking friendship and understanding. They had been met with arrogance and violence, but in the end, they proved that the species capable of the greatest compassion was also capable of the greatest resolve. They had earned their place among the stars not through conquest, but through the refusal to be conquered, not through hate, but through the choice to forgive without forgetting. The day humanity came to the Galactic Council in blood was the day the galaxy learned what it truly meant to be civilized.